All right, so we are going to start our first podcast. The discussion is the way that we interact with the population. So my name is Rebecca Michael. I'm the advocacy manager for the Independence Center. And this is a podcast for all. We would like to have it accessible for not only individuals who enjoy the audio experience, but also the video experience. So as we continue our experiences with the podcast, we'll explore those possibilities. Today I have 3 guests with me, and I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. And we're going to talk about how the world interacts with us and how we interact with the world with our disabilities. So, Tim?
Hi, I'm Tim Ashley. I work at the Independence Center. Try to help people with disabilities do better at integrating into the community and being treated equally. And I think it's funny you say how I interact with the community. I think I interact really well with the community, but I think sometimes the community has a little problem with me.
We all experience that. Elle?
I'm Elle Livengood, and I also work at the Independence Center, and I'm a community advocacy coordinator.
Daniel?
My name is Daniel Ratcliff. I also work at the Independence Center, and I am the benefits coordinator.
Excellent. So, Tim, if you think back at how society or within our community interacts with you, what kind of humorous stories or interesting stories come to mind?
Well, I think I have a lot of funny experiences at the grocery store that probably weren't as funny at the time, but now that I look back at them, can really laugh. But one thing I notice at stores and stuff is avoidance, and I think it's because of a lack of education. I almost feel like people think I'm contagious at times. Like a little kid will try to come up and talk to me, and his parent will grab him. No, get away from him, So I want to tell the parent, hey, I'm not contagious. He's not going to grow wheels if he touches me or anything. But I've also noticed a lot of times I'll be wanting to go down an aisle, or I'll be on an aisle, and I'll see people start to turn on an aisle, and they'll look up at me, and they're like, oh, my God, we got to go to a different aisle because I don't know how to deal with this. So a lot of avoidance, and I think there again it's because of the lack of education. I find people wanting to help a lot, but I also find people overhelp at times, and even though they mean well, I've gotten in situations where people were trying to help me or thought they were trying to help me, and we wound up doing a lot more work or being in a place where we weren't supposed to be or I didn't want to be. For instance, I was leaving the grocery store one time with a basket on my lap, and this lady came behind me and just started pushing me, and she said, I'm going to help you, and you're not going to tell me no. And so I grabbed onto the basket, figured we're going for a ride. And so we're going through the parking lot, and we get about 8 to maybe 10 spaces. And she stops and she says, where are we going? And I said, well, when you started pushing me, I was 10 feet away from my van, and I could have easily done it. So please ask somebody before you just assume they need help and start giving them a tour of the parking lot that I've been through many times and didn't care to see.
So for those who are not in the room, do you want to discuss the wheels remark? So you use a wheelchair. And so for visual understanding for those who aren't in the room.
Yeah, I use a wheelchair, and I used to be ashamed of it, but I'm not ashamed of it because it gets me from point A to point B. And I look at a wheelchair now as a means of freedom rather than a means of or a disability. So it provides a lot of ability for me instead of being a disability.
Sure. Makes sense. Is there one story outside of the grocery store, because I can see that happening, that you think would be valuable to share may not be as humorous, but something that really that resonates for you and that you continually try to educate individuals about?
Well, I think one of the biggest problems I've run into, I drive and I come out the side of my van, and so that's what those extra wide spaces are for, with the stripes, for people that have to make a side entry or a side exit into their vehicle, whether they use a walker or a wheelchair or whatever. And I wish people would be a little more cognizant of that and recognize that as not being a grocery cart return. I know I've had to many times park outside of where I was allowed to park and further back from the store because the grocery carts were taking up the access aisles. So parking's a big one. Another thing I run into a lot is going into community places like restaurants or stores, especially restaurants. Even though I can get in the building and it is accessible, and they have a restroom, probably 50% of the restaurants in this town have the little high chairs, and they store them right in front of the restroom doors or in the hallway of the restroom so that people with wheelchairs can't get to the restroom. And yes, we do have to use the restroom at times. So
It's required.
yeah. So that's another thing. And I know that's not funny. There's really nothing funny about it. I've actually gone to managers and told them that I'm going to go somewhere else, and they've lost my business because they've created barriers rather than remove them. So
I've also seen, in my experience, in the accessible stalls or accessible restrooms, that they have put the changing tables in the restrooms, or they put a fake plant in the restrooms. Really, we don't care to see fake greenery in the restroom. It just automatically makes what they would call or consider an accessible restroom into it not being accessible, and then now you've taken that ability away from someone.
right. And yeah, that's a really good point. I don't mind the changing tables being in the restroom stall, but a lot of times there's not enough room for my hand to go in between the changing table and the bar. So that bar, even though it's in the right place, is useless because of that other obstacle that was hung too close to it. So that's a really good example.
Yeah, I've seen that. Anybody else have some weird interactions with accessible bathrooms?
The only issues I have is if they do not have a Braille stamp on the doors, and if I can't tell the dress or the pants.
Awkward.
Very awkward. Very awkward. The Braille actually helps because sometimes it can be difficult if it's just writing. Sometimes the writing can be very small. The lettering can be very small on the doors. And if I don't notice it, or if there's a sign that it may be out of view, it can be awkward.
I could see that.
Definitely.
Yes, I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
Well, Daniel, in talking about what that you use Braille, let's talk about some interesting interactions that you have had out in the community, and
Yes.
and the need for Braille and why you need it.
Awesome. I would be happy to talk about it. As an individual that is blind, legally blind, technically, not totally blind. I have some vision. Braille can come in handy where I am not a daily Braille reader. Braille comes in handy if I am at McDonald's and I cannot see the menu above. They have Braille marks on the physical menu that is in front of you on the countertop, which gives you the numbers to each combo. Oh. So I can order a number one and know that it's a Big Mac meal. I love McDonald's. Endorse us, please. But that's very important. And also, if I'm going to public places where I need to use the elevator, sometimes I may not be able to see the numbers on the actual button, but beside each button, you will see that they have raised numbers as well as Braille. Usually, if they are ADA compliant, they do that. So Braille is extremely important. If an individual is totally blind without Braille, they are dependent upon someone else to tell them or to guide them to where they need to be, and that is not what we call independence.
Good point. So your need for Braille is actually very relevant right now, because we are finding that Braille is not being taught at our local school. So CSDB is not, or the Colorado School for the Deaf and Blind is no longer teaching Braille because of where we are with our technology. However, when we think about emergency preparedness and the relevance for having that that ability to read and understand in an emergency is very relevant. So within the advocacy department, we're aware of that, and we're finding ways to work with our local school to ensure that there's even an option to teach children as they grow. And a person who, myself, who has only one eye due to losing it as a child, and the constant reminder that I could easily go blind again, fully, if I lost sight in my real eye, that would be something that I would want to learn. And if it's not accessible or available to even children, let alone myself, is really a bit of a concern for me. So I can totally see that. But so let's talk about something fun instead of that kind of heavy subject of lack of independence and lack of access. Let's talk about how you interact with the environment and how sometimes the environment doesn't really interact well with you.
Definitely. Going to places like the Y, I enjoy playing basketball. That's something that I enjoy. And when I go to the Y, if I have my cane with me because I'm in a new area, people may look at me a little weird when I put my cane down and step onto the basketball court and make baskets and play with everyone else. They can say things such as, "You're not blind," and I'm like, "Oh, yes, I am. Let me drive your car, and we'll see if I'm blind or not." But I look at those fun situations as opportunities to educate, and that's how I find the silver lining with the misconceptions that come with being blind. Also going into restaurants and sitting down and having a menu handed to me, but looking to my waitress or waiter and saying, "Can't quite read this. Could you assist me?" And going through this menu, sometimes you can get the look as if, "Hey, what you can't read?" And it's like, "No, it's not that I can't read. I just can't see it." And they're like, "Oh, we have large print, but usually large print is 18 font. I need like 47 font." So that can always be fun to try to, I would say, educate instead of prove my disability or my limitations.
Yeah. And that happens a lot with invisible disabilities.
Yes.
If you don't have what the environment or what society believes as a disability that they can see, you find yourself having to prove constantly that that you have a disability, and you need just a little bit of an accommodation to allow you to participate or even enjoy the environment. So, yeah. I can understand that happens to me on a regular basis.
Definitely.
Usually when people walk into me, but someone will be walking one direction and I'll be walking another, and I feel I have the right of way because it is me, and so they just collide into me on my blind side, which is my right side, and I just look at them like, "I was walking here," and they look at me like, "I was walking here. Didn't you see me coming?" No, I didn't. So, yeah, because it's all about when I'm walking, right. I have my own aura to, like, get out of my way. I know you see me. I just don't see you.
Yeah, I use my cane for that. They part like the Red Sea. If you have your cane, they'll get out the way. And if not, whack them on the ankle,
Yeah. I actually wouldn't mind one of those. That's a good idea.
You can get in a lot of trouble.
Can I say something about the white canes? Because I went to the NFB conference in Denver a couple of years ago. And, of course, there was more white canes than I've ever seen in my life. And I spent the night in the same hotel with all of them, and I came down, I think I was on the 8th floor or something. I came down to the lobby in the morning because I wanted to attend one of the breakout sessions. And when the elevator door opened, I eased my way out, and I looked to my left, and there was about 50 white canes coming at me. And I'm like, oh, my God, what do I do? I kind of panicked. And I did, so I'm going back and forth sideways trying to avoid the canes, and I had people tripping over my wheels and whacking me with the cane. And so I asked the person at the conference, I said, what should I have done? I know I didn't act properly. What should I have done? I tried to get back in the elevator. They're like, no, just sit still, let the cane find you, and they would have went around. So by me being a moving target, I created but that was very awkward for me, and I didn't know how to react. But
that is
quite an experience.
Very valid experience, because when I interacted as a child with a person who used a cane, I didn't know how to react, or okay, what direction are they going, and trying to do the guess. I'm going to go left, they're going to go right, and then we still end up colliding into each other.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. The white cane is somewhat of a mystery to those who don't have to interact with it on a regular basis.
Oh yeah, it's a mystery to those that interact with it on a regular basis as well.
I just see it as a means for freedom and access, but sometimes I wish I personally understood how to interact better.
Oh, so definitely the best thing to do is ask questions. That's the first steps to understanding.
Excellent. All right. So, Elle, do you want to give us some stories and tell us how the world interacts with you and how you interact with the world?
Sure. It's interesting that you were just discussing invisible disabilities, because that's what I would qualify under, sort of. I'm deaf, and so you don't really see it unless, you're signing or you see my cochlear implant on my ear. But I do sound very hearing, and so people often mistake me as a hearing person, which has its pros and cons of like, no, this is definitely just one-way communication. You're hearing me, but I don't have any access to what you're saying. And those mishaps, I guess, that happen with that, like, you're at the bank and you're talking, and then they start talking back, but there's like 6 inches of glass in between you and the person, so there's no way that you can get any sound access. And you're like, wait, can you repeat that for me? I didn't hear you, I'm deaf. And then all of a sudden, everything changes, and, people start talking like they have to enunciate everything, right? And like over-exaggerating and all of those kinds of things. And it's really hilarious because the person just ends up making themselves look silly because it doesn't help me understand at all.
It probably makes it more difficult to understand them.
Absolutely. Very much so. So that happens a lot. Or even just, in regular conversation, I talk with people and, then they assume that I'm hearing. And so they treat me like a hearing person. They're like, Elle, I've been yelling at you for 5 minutes. I'm like, well, I got nothing. You're behind me. I'm not going to hear you. And so that kind of thing happens a lot. Even when I'm not wearing my cochlear implant, and interacting with the world as a deaf person is really interesting. And, those instances at the grocery store where somebody's behind you and they start talking and like, excuse me, but you still don't hear no matter how loud they get. And then they start shoving the grocery cart into you and you're like, this really hurts. That was not okay. So that kind of stuff happens. Yep. And so, but you don't see it. Like, I don't understand why hearing people just don't assume that someone didn't hear you instead of they were ignoring you.
And then
but that happens.
Assault you with a
Yep, and then assault
cart.
me with the grocery cart. It hurts when it hits the back of your heels.
Yes, that does.
Yep.
Especially when someone is intentionally doing it.
Yeah.
I've had it unintentionally happen.
Why would you do that to anybody? That just blows my mind. I think a really funny one for me is going to the audiologist. And, you know, the audiologist is literally an ear doctor. And they understand that you have hearing loss. They understand that you have a profound hearing loss. And they take your cochlear implant off of your head, which means that you are 100% deaf. And then they start talking. And you're like, wait a second. You're the ear doctor here. You should know that I can't hear you after you take my cochlear implant off my head. But they do it every time.
Every time.
Every time. You're like, this is silly.
Yeah, that is actually very silly. The best, I have two really valid stories about interactions with individuals who either don't understand that I only have one eye, or they're just not making the connection. I don't find it as intentional. But the first story is when I was in kindergarten, and I was very actively erasing something on a paper in my desk, and I accidentally poked my artificial eye out of my head, and it hits the table, and the whole class just stops. And the teacher grabs the eye and grabs my arm and starts pulling me out of the room because they don't know how to deal with this now prosthetic eye on a table, and it's not where it's supposed to be in my head. And so instead of giving it back to me and allowing me just to put it back, they start looking for my sister, who was in the same school the same time, trying to find her so that she could tell them how to put it back in my head.
Wow.
And yeah, this was, I think I was 6 years old. And the whole time I keep telling them, if you just give it back to me, I'll put it back in. This is not a big deal. This happens a lot. And so about an hour later, after I'm in a room by myself, because they don't know what to do with this child who now has a socket that doesn't have an eye in it. And so they just put you in a room, close the door, and just kind of freak out on the other side. They finally locate my sister, and they say, what do we do with this eye? What do we do? And she says, just give it back to her. She'll put it back in her head, and you can get back to class. And the teacher was just stunned, even though I had been asking, already aware of how to take care of this prosthesis that just goes in my head. I've done this for years.
It's normal to you.
Right. Just give it back, and I'll put it back in, and we'll move on with our day. And so they finally give it back to me. I put it back in my head, and I'm like, let's get back to class. And it was just like just the light bulbs. You could actually see them go on over the teachers' heads, because they thought that it was some sort of a medical condition or a medical issue that they had to, put me in a separate room, segregate me from the rest of the school, because they didn't know how to handle this situation.
Boy.
And so, of course, my sister was likely one of my first, outside of my parents, advocates for allowing me to take care of myself. And we learned that at a young age. So, in understanding the environment and the individuals who we interacted with, it really should have been something that they should have just. It's like taking your cochlear implant and removing that ability to have access or even be a part of the environment.
It's the individual who knows best how to do it anyways.
Exactly. And understanding that.
I know.
I think there's a feeling of uncomfortability, whatever the word I'm looking for. And again, I mentioned education earlier. I think it really is education. We all joke about ourselves, and I know we strive to be normal, if there is such of a thing. But I think society won't let us or won't accept us as normal. Mm-hmm. And I know one of the things, we talk about in disability awareness is just be comfortable. This is a real person. They have real life problems, real life successes, just like you do. Like you might joke and say, well, I'll keep my eye out for that or something, right? And Daniel, we were talking earlier, and I said, hey, did you see that, Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I constantly say something like I stood in line at the DMV for 3 hours,
Right.
So it's just normal, and we try to fit in as being normal. I hate that word normal, so I'm sorry for using it, but try to fit in with everybody else, and there's an awkwardness there that, oh my God, this person has a disability, there's something wrong with them, and there's just a little conflict or friction that kind of evolves from that. So
I think there's a lot of fear too, not only fear of the unknown, but I think there's a lot of fear of making people feel uncomfortable, like that you don't want to make the disabled person themselves feel uncomfortable, but then you tiptoe on eggshells and make it more uncomfortable by doing that.
Right.
Because you're right, we're just like anybody else.
Right.
We all have our own definition of normal.
Right.
And we all live those different experiences, and we're just going about the world, existing, doing our thing, and people try to help, but that helping often makes it weird and uncomfortable for everybody.
Correct.
Definitely.
All right, so Tim left us, so we're going to have a few more minutes of conversation because I find that this is more valuable when we just kind of talk about what our experiences are. So any other humorous stories before I give you guys my last one?
Ooh, I have one.
Go for it.
So, if you have a disability, you can get a free lifetime access card to all of the national parks, right? Mm-hmm. And so I remember the first time, or the only time, that I tried to do this, and it was in Smoky Mountain National Park. And at that time, I was not wearing my cochlear implant, and I was with a fellow deaf person, my friend. And so the two of us are deaf people walking into the office, and, we approach the desk and we write down, we'd like to get these cards. And we're signing to each other, but, deafness is some sort of invisible disability in a sense. And so the person doesn't believe us because we don't have audiograms to prove our hearing loss. And so we're just like, okay, fine, whatever. And so we continue to walk around the shop, signing, as deaf people do, chatting away. And finally, this woman comes up and is like, okay, well, I guess I believe you now. And I have this piece of paper that you can sign. And if you sign it and you're lying that you have a disability, then we can put you in jail. And I was like, well, I have no problem signing it because I really am deaf. So I'm not going to go to jail.
Oh, wow.
That is ridiculous.
Right?
I don't know what I would do in that situation.
Yeah. So we signed the paper, got our cards, but the whole situation, we believe you now because we chatted and signed. Okay.
Wow.
And then, if you're lying, you'll go to jail. Okay, well, I really am deaf, so.
That is hilarious.
That is actually very cool. What I would have done was likely just removed my eye out of my head.
Yes!
That's easily provable.
I could do that.
Yes!
I have no problem being able to prove that.
Oh man, how do I do it? I want to take my eyes out. Man, I'll trade my eyes. Definitely. Sign me up for that one.
Get you those glasses with the eyes that, fall out. The googly ones.
Right. All right.
That actually would serve the purpose.
Yes.
Really, I am. Here they come. Ready?
And I can wear these all the time because it doesn't matter.
Oh, my
Exactly.
gosh. Man, cool stories with my children. When they see me walk into things, they get a great laugh out of that. I always say I forget that I'm blind sometimes, and I'll try to do things that I know I shouldn't be doing, like run really fast in places like parks. Yeah, it's very easy to trip over the sandbox and fall face first, but the kids love it.
I'm sure.
The kids love
I
it.
find you humorous.
Oh, yeah. Or when you're playing catch with your son and he decides to throw the ball at your face. And you're like, wait
a minute.
You got to say something first.
It's on its way.
Right.
I
Here it
aimed
is.
for your nose. Be prepared.
Learn to catch with your mouth, Dad, because it's coming. But yeah, those are just really, really cool things. Or when my children's friends find out that I'm blind, they'll stand beside me and speak loudly, thinking that, I have an issue with hearing. And it's like, no, I just can't see well.
I've had that
I
happen.
can hear.
Where like I put down that I'm deaf on my airplane ticket, and then I get off the plane and there's somebody standing there with my name on a sign, and they've got a wheelchair.
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna keep walking.
I'm not even going to acknowledge the sign with my name on it.
Yep.
I don't need a wheelchair.
People misunderstand. Like, I'm deaf. It has nothing to do with my legs.
I walk
It's
right
not
by
yours.
him most of the time. I don't even see the sign.
Yes.
For real.
Right, exactly.
They would likely come up on my right side and I wouldn't see them either. So I get that. So, I think that you bring up a good point about family, because as you grow up with a disability, you were taught very much to kind of conform within society and conform to what society wants you to do or how you want to do it.
Be normal.
Exactly.
Right.
But my parents never taught me to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
They
Yes.
always taught me that I have this unique. It was more taught like a gift. They never said, you have this gift of not having an eye.
Right.
Yes.
It was more of, you have this ability that no one else has. You're not going to interact with someone similar to you. Yeah. So you are unique, and you should be able to enjoy that.
Yes.
So going to family, they may make fun and kind of laugh at you and with you at times.
Yes.
But you know what? They're the most accepting
Yes.
within your environment. Mm-hmm. And that allows you to kind of like laugh at yourself and also go, you know what? I had this really bad experience, and they want to champion it for you, even though you're like, I've got it. Mm-hmm. Thanks, but I got it.
That attitude makes you fearless. When you look at your limitations and say, well, this is my normal.
Yep.
It really makes you fearless. And there's nothing that anyone in the public or in society that could say to you that could really hurt you because you've already conquered the fears that you may have had for yourself.
Absolutely.
And you were able to do that in an environment that was going to accept you no matter what.
Yes.
Within your family. So that's it's very cool, and also allows us as individuals with disabilities, I personally believe, parent better, because we understand the disability and understand hardship.
Yes.
And how to help navigate your children through hardships.
Yeah.
An appreciation of uniqueness, too.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Teaching them to work around, no barriers.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. You just figure it out differently.
Yep.
Yep. So I will end with my DMV story. This is always fun. So a couple of years ago, I went to go get my license because, we all have to do that when we drive. Unlike Daniel here, who's like, yeah, please let me drive your car.
I drive illegally.
I happily prove to you.
No. I don't drive illegally.
I didn't just put that out in the universe.
Right. Disclaimer.
And so I went to the DMV, and every time I go to the DMV, and every time I have to do a sight test, I always give the disclaimer that I don't have a right eye. I don't have the mechanics that go behind the right eye. There is nothing there that is actual sight related. It's all artificial. And so generally the response is, a head nod or a thumbs up or, okay, gotcha. And then it's like they have a temporary memory and they forget. And so then at the DMV, I told the woman, I only have one eye. It's my left eye. I can't see out of my right. I have no problem seeing. I don't need glasses. And, you go through all the questions about being a voter and a donor and all that. And so she's like, go ahead and do your, go ahead and put your head into that device that allows you to do the sight test. And she asks me if it can see the green light. And I'm like, no, all black. I can't, there's nothing going on. And she says, are you sure there should be a blinking green light? And I'm sure. She goes, well, it's on your right side.
Wow.
Face palming.
Yeah. And so I put my head up and I look at her and I said, I told you I don't have an eye on my right side. And she's like, oh, that's right. I'm sorry. And so we do the test again. And she's like, do you see the stop sign? And of course, in America, we have our stop signs on the right side. So I tell her, no, I don't see the stop sign. Is it on the right side? And she said, yes. And I look up at her again, and she's like, Oh, that's right. And finally, and I don't normally do this, so I don't want people to freak out when I tell you this, but in order to get my point across so I could pass this test and move on, I had actually tapped my prosthetic eye with my fingernail.
Oh my God.
So she could see that it was fake.
Yes.
And then it was like the light bulb went off and she's like, "Oh, that's right." So then I finally get through the test. I wait for the printout that they give you at the DMV. They tell you you're going to get your license in the mail. And her parting comment to me was, "You need to go to the doctor to get that checked."
Wow.
Yes.
Get what checked?
Yes. There's nothing that can be
Okay.
fixed here. Thanks for the recommendation.
She should be on the right side of you for the rest of your life.
I know.
That particular lady should just stay on your right side.
Never have to see that
Yes.
person again. I don't want to see you, so you just sit right next to me on the right. I know. It's amazing that, and then you think about it, and this is a somebody who interacts with the public on a regular basis.
Right.
And what do you do with a person who is deaf? How do you interact with that person?
Oh, they don't really.
Yeah. It truly makes you think, how do we provide that education? And that's, of course, what we do at the Independence Center is provide education and look for ways to remove those barriers. So unfortunately, life lessons have caused us to create education when we don't really feel comfortable doing it, but we do it anyway.
Yeah, you kind of have to.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're superheroes.
Of course.
Yeah. Just for going to the store, right?
Just for waking up every day.
Right.
Yes.
Going out into the world that doesn't necessarily not necessarily adapted for us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Daniel and Elle. I really appreciate you guys sitting down and talking, and we'll we thank Tim as well for this good conversation. We will likely have another.
Yes.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.